There is nothing new in the world, except the history you do not know. It's a recession when your neighbor loses his job. It's a depression when you lose yours. The reward of suffering is experience. In reading the lives of great men, I found that the first victory they won was over themselves, self-discipline. With all of them came first. If you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. I have found the best way to give advice to your children is to find out what they want, and then advise them to do it. Carry the battle to them. Don't let them bring it to you. Put them on the defensive, and don't ever apologize for anything. When you have an efficient government, you have a dictatorship. Actions are the seed of fate. Deeds grow into destiny. A pessimist is one who makes difficulties of his opportunities, and an optimist is one who makes opportunities of his difficulties. I would rather have peace in the world than be president. A politician is a man who understands government. A statesman is a politician who's been dead for 15 years. My father was not a failure. After all, he was the father of a president of the United States. The Marine Corps is the Navy's police force, and as long as I am president, that is what it will remain. They have a propaganda machine that is almost equal to Stalin's. The only things worth learning are the things you learn after you know it all. When even one American who has done nothing wrong is forced by fear to shut his mind and close his mouth, then all Americans are in peril. I never gave anybody hell. I just told the truth, and they thought it was hell. I do not believe there is a problem in this country, or the world today, which could not be settled if approached through the teaching of the Sermon on the Mount. You can never get all the facts from just one newspaper, and unless you have all the facts, you cannot make proper judgments about what is going on. Always be sincere, even if you don't mean it. The buck stops here. The White House is the finest prison in the world. Intense feeling too often obscures the truth. A leader in the Democratic Party is a boss. In the Republican Party, he is a leader. The atom bomb was no great decision. It was merely another powerful weapon in the arsenal of righteousness. The United Nations is designed to make possible lasting freedom and independence for all its members. Being too good is apt to be uninteresting. Those who want the government to regulate matters of the mind and spirit are like men who are so afraid of being murdered that they commit suicide to avoid assassination. Whenever you put a man on the Supreme Court, he ceases to be your friend. Experience has shown how deeply the seeds of war are planted by economic rivalry and social injustice. A president cannot always be popular. The president is always abused. If he isn't doing anything. All my life, whenever it comes time to make a decision, I make it and forget about it. Art is parasitic on life, just as criticism is parasitic on art. This administration is going to be cussed and discussed for years to come. I've said many a time that I think the Un-American Activities Committee in the House of Representatives was the most un-American thing in America. Study men, not historians. It's plain hokum. If you can't convince them, confuse them. It's an old political trick. But this time, it won't work. Well, I wouldn't say that I was in the great class, but I had a great time while I was trying to be great. Most of the problems a president has to face have their roots in the past. A president either is constantly on top of events or, if he hesitates, events will soon be on top of him. I never felt that I could let up for a moment. Whenever a fellow tells me he's bipartisan, I know he's going to vote against me. A president needs political understanding to run the government, but he may be elected without it. Washington is a very easy city for you to forget where you came from and why you got there in the first place. A bureaucrat is a Democrat who holds some office that a Republican wants. In my opinion, 8 years as president is enough and sometimes too much for any man to serve in that capacity.